A minute or two. Looks like a few are still coming in. Still a few more coming in. I don't think people realize how prompt we are.
That's why we have Russ in charge.
That's right. Good afternoon and welcome to the Roofing Information Town Hall. I'm Michael Schwartz, Board President, and I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our panelists for today's discussion. We have Russ Gaglio, our property manager, and Dee Lopez, our assistant property manager. We are especially pleased to have with us today Richard Campbell, our distinguished roofing consultant. You will be hearing from Richard throughout the meeting, and he will be happy to answer any of your questions. Richard is sitting with Russ there on the green shirt. We also have with us today board member Henry Brinzel. Henry's duties as a board member include liaison to both the engineering committee as well as the architectural review committee. Henry is also a member of the legal committee. He's very busy. Throughout the meeting, we will be referring to the architectural review committee with the acronym ARC or ARC. Henry is a lawyer and an engineer, and he has been invaluable to the board, management, and the residents in updating the community rules and regulations, as well as the ARC rules. One of Henry's best decisions as board liaison to the ARC was recommending Rob Parsley to be chair of the ARC committee. I have found Rob to be intelligent and knowledgeable, but most of all, determined to go the extra mile to meet the residents' needs when possible. Rob is our final panelist today, and you can see Rob is in the black shirt. I would like to close by thanking Russ and Dee, as well as my fellow board members who work so hard to maintain our 20-year-old community and also continually find ways to provide opportunities for the residents to enhance their property and lifestyle at Valencia Falls. Thank you, management team and fellow board members. At this time, I'll go to Henry, who has some remarks. Henry?
Thank you, Mike. You're very kind. I wish to put in context and to accentuate the fact that the roofing project, as the board views the idea, is an effort by the board to help the community, because re-roofing a house must be done with great expertise in order to make sure that you have a leak-free roof that will last many years. Most of us know very little about what ought to be done. And on top of that, re-roofing is also quite expensive. The result of this work by Mike, Russ, the folks in the HOA office, and other folks on the panel is a set of recommendations that were presented to you, about which we will talk today. In short, we recommend that those of you who wish to re-roof your house seriously consider having your re-roofing project follow the scope of work that Richard Campbell recommended. We do so because we trust his expertise. We also recommend that you seriously consider using one of the contractors that Richard recommended. We do so because Richard believes them to be reputable contractors, because they agreed to re-roof Valencia Falls homes by following the scope of work created by Richard. And the contractors stated that they will not use subcontractors except for gutter work. And it is easier for a homeowner to manage a project only when a prime contractor is involved. So the only thing that I have to mention that is constrained, the only things I should say that are constrained in a re-roofing project are the tile profile and the tile color. We selected the tile profile and that shall be used, and the tile color is constrained to be to the roof type, just as it was done during the recently completed painting project. These constraints arise from the responsibility that both the HOA and the ARC have to ensure that the construction, any construction, alterations or additions, in short, improvements, will not be detrimental to the appearance of the surrounding area of the property as a whole. The appearance of any structure affected by the improvements will be in harmony with the surrounding structures and will be otherwise desirable. Basically, or essentially, I quoted to you from the Declaration of Covenants. As was stated in the introduction segment in the roofing webpage on our website, as with all improvements, every roofing project needs to be approved by the ARC. And we also recommend that you do not sign an agreement with the roofing contractor before you receive an ARC approval. Please remember that the HOA board is providing recommendations to assist you in re-roofing your home, not legal advice. The board has no information and expresses no opinion regarding any legal document a homeowner may sign with a contractor. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Henry. I'd now like to turn the meeting over to Russ, who will introduce Richard Campbell along with Richard. He and Richard will go over the roofing information that was provided to you already on the website. They will also answer questions that you submitted. If you have additional questions, as Jason mentioned at the beginning, use the Q&A function during the meeting, and we'll answer those at the end of the meeting. So Russ and Richard will take off now. They'll answer the questions that you submitted previously. If you have additional questions as they go through it, put them on the Q&A, and we'll make sure your questions are answered. So with that, Russ, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Henry. So we really just started discussing this project more than 2 years ago, and because of the pandemic and everything, we got a little behind, but here we are. We did this project or are doing this because we've had requests from residents for two major reasons. One, we've heard people say and talk about how it's becoming more difficult to get insurance. And two, all the roofs are 20 years plus, and some of them are leaking. So they were concerned about aging roofs with leaks. So the best way to handle it, we went ahead and we hired an expert. We did the same thing with erosion. We did the same thing with the agronomist facade. So we're turning to experts when we have situations like this. So we hired Richard Campbell, and I'll introduce him in just 1 second. Richard has supervised the replacement of this clubhouse roof several years ago. For those who remember, I think it was 2015. He's put together some parameters and guidelines for a high quality roof replacement. And then I'm going to walk you through the documents on the website, but first we're going to let Richard say hello and tell you a little bit about his background. So go ahead, Richard.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Richard Campbell. I own CBA Roof Consulting. I've been in the roofing industry for over 55 years. I started out quite young. My brother and my father were in the roofing industry. I was a union roofer up in upstate New York. I've been in Florida since '86, and I've been consulting in Florida since '89. So I'm very familiar with construction in Florida, South Florida in particular, tile installation. I have, actually, I couldn't even tell you how many projects I've done. I've done many communities, clubhouses. I did the Gardens Mall. I did the Coral Ridge Mall. I've done any number of office buildings all over the state. I've worked in other states as well. It's really the only thing I know well is roofing. But I also, for the last 7 or 8 years, have worked part-time with the licensing board I actually write the state exam for state certified roofing contractors. So yeah, I've been around the block a few times.
Thanks. All right, let me move on. We're gonna talk about the website and the documents on the website. The very first thing you do is on the website, you go to the FYI tab, you drop it down, and there's a link that says roof information. I hope people had a chance to take a look at that website and those documents. The first document is a letter of introduction. Of course, that's kind of self-explanatory. Henry talked about some of the things in there. I talked about some of the things there, and Mike talked about some of the things in there. Then, of course, you have Richard's background, and he just told you about it. Then you have 3 pre-qualified contractors that are state certified. And remember, Richard said he helps write that document, licensed and insured, and also has the company's background information. So that's who we are recommending. They are preferred contractors. Now, when contacting these people, please make sure you use the information on the website, because we had already an incident where somebody randomly called, or not randomly called, they got the wrong number of one of these 3 companies, and whoever picked up the phone didn't realize who Valencia Falls was. And it was very simple. I went to that same link right there, looked right at the person's name and contact information, called them, and got right through. So it's important that you follow what's in those documents there. Okay, now the forms themselves, some basic forms. There's a bid form. And in short, it basically summarizes the contractor's proposal and states that the contractor is following the scope of services provided, which is interesting. On the back page of it, or the second page of it, it shows us changes and add-ons. So this can make it easier when you are comparing quote to quote. The next one is roof recommendations. So if you look at that, some of those things are already included because you got the 3 qualified contractors. But if you decide to go away from the pre-qualified contractors, you want to make sure you look at recommendations, and you want to make sure they're licensed and insured and state certified and all that kind of thing too. Then you have the scope of service. This is basically a step-by-step procedure that the contractor should follow. Then you have a 10-year warranty. We'll talk a little bit about that, but Richard went ahead and created that warranty just for us. The next document is the ARC application. This is the same ARC application that we use for everything. Some of you are familiar with it if you did household projects. And the last document is the homeowner's roof number list. This is organized by address. You can find the corresponding tile number to match your home. So that's the website. Now, I have in front of me about 20 questions that were given to me prior to this meeting. So between Richard and I, we're going to go through them, and then anybody who has any other questions can go ahead and send them in. Okay. Question: do you have to pay for the one-time transfer of the warranty? No, you don't. The roofers have agreed to do a one-time transfer without a charge.
And it's in the warranty.
It's in the warranty. It's on the second page. It's the second page, number 5 on the warranty. The next question is, why is the warranty only for 10 years when it's a 20-year roof? Well, first of all, no one offers a 20-year warranty. Richard has told us that 1 to 3 years is standard in the industry, but Richard created that document that's on the website to give you better coverage. Just overall, it's a good warranty. Question: can you pay for a longer warranty? Well, most likely not. I guess you can always ask the roofer anything you want, but most likely not. However, roofers might want to offer you some sort of a maintenance contract. Okay. And that too, you have to discuss with the roofer. Okay. The next question: is the warranty by the contractor, or is it by the manufacturer of the materials? No, it's by the contractor. It's a contractor's warranty. Question: how do you know if you need a new roof? Well, some of the obvious things is if it leaks. First of all, the other thing is you're all 20 years, all the roofs are 20 years old. The useful life of these roofs are about 25 years. So you're getting to that time anyhow.
Useful life of these roofs, it's actually only about 18 years.
So did you hear that? The useful life is only 18 years. So you're already beyond the useful life. And then again, some residents had called my office and said, listen, the insurance companies are giving us a hard time. So that's another good reason. Okay, that's all. Next question. Who can be used as an independent inspector to determine if you need a new roof? Well, that's one thing we did not do. We do not have independent inspectors recommended for you to use. You can find your own. Richard tells me it's anywhere between $500 and $750. And you want to make sure they're independent, that they are not associated with the roofing company.
Or a manufacturer.
Or a manufacturer, okay? This question is a little weird, but anyways, it was sent to me by a resident that was reading an article about roofing. It is, what is meant by a 3-nail system? Frankly, I didn't have a clue, so I asked Richard. This was an article that was sent to a resident, like I said, and it was based, was in regards to a project in Orlando. And it was referring to how the trusses are fastened to the home. So that's not what we're doing here. We're putting new roofs on. We're not building a truss system for a new home. Okay, the next question is wind mitigation. Does the roofer provide the documentation or does the insurance company? Well, what I found is it's usually a third party that provides the mitigation information. Usually what they want is they want a copy of the signed permit for your new roof. This indicates to them that it's a new roof and it's all up to code. So if you need mitigation information, make sure you keep a copy of your permit. Next question. Why don't we have a standard price list per model? Well, we talked about that one a lot, but it becomes difficult because there is too many variables. There's the plywood, replacement plywood. There's the fascia boards. We'll talk about this in a minute, but there's 2 different choices in roofing systems. So those are reasons. Plus, any proposal you're going to get is only going to be good for about 30 days. Prices are skyrocketing and pricing is very difficult. It's very high now. And so nobody wants to commit for longer periods of time. Question. Please explain the difference between flat roof tiles and barrel roof tiles and how they handle hurricane force winds. Richard, do you want to talk about that one?
Flat roof tiles they used to be the most common type of tile. These days, the roll tile that's being specified for your homes is the strongest. That's the most common tile sold on the market today because they are the strongest. When it comes to wind resistance, hurricane resistance, the code in Palm Beach County requires a minimum of 150 mile an hour wind speed. We are in the high wind hurricane zone, which means we have higher standards than the rest of the state of Florida. Palm Beach, Broward, Dade, and Monroe counties have the highest requirements for wind resistance. As far as the difference between flat tiles and roll tiles in wind resistance, there is none. We are specifying that the tiles be adhered with a 2-part polyiso foam, which should give you wind resistance in excess of 180 miles an hour. 150 to 160 miles an hour is a Category 5 hurricane. What will happen in that instance is you're going to get impact damage from things flying around, but the tile should not come off. It's probably the best installation method we've ever found for attaching tile. The foam is, but as far as wind resistance, there's literally no difference between flat tile and roll tile. And the roll tile would include S tile like you have on the clubhouse, a real barrel, or the double roll that goes on the homes.
Okay, thank you. Question, solar panel. Who removes them and who reinstalls them? Do the roofers do this? No, they don't. You have to hire a solar panel company to do the removal and to reinstall the panels. And timing is very important. They have to come off at a certain time and they have to go back on at a certain time. You need to deal with the roofer. They're all experienced in doing this. So you need to coordinate that with them, but they will not touch your solar panels.
And that includes both solar electric panels and pool heaters.
Okay. The next question, do you replace the existing vents? The answer is yes. The next question, is there any financing available? The answer is no, not from the three contractors. If you find your own financing, you find your own financing, but these three contractors are not offering financing. The next question, will rotten plywood be replaced? Yes, it's actually in the scope of service up to 5 sheets. Now, 5 sheets might not do it. There might have to be additional sheets, but on the bid form, there's a spot for additional sheets. So you'll just have to work with the roofer on that. Will the recommended tile selection match existing roof and home color? The answer is yes. We had the manufacturer rep come out from Bowler Roofing. They selected a series, Bowler Estate.
Burrell.
Estate Services series. And yes, they did a very good job of matching the type and color of tiles that are available to what we have right now. Okay, the next question I'm going to leave all up to Richard is the question was how many layers of tar paper will be installed? Well, they don't do it that way anymore. So Richard is going to give you the technical stuff behind that.
There are 2 layers of material that are put down before the tile. The first is an anchor sheet that's normally 30-pound asphalt felt, and that's nailed to the deck with nails and tin tags. There is an alternate for a synthetic base sheet. That's obviously more money, but the first sheet is the anchor sheet, and that's nailed to the building. It's nailed to the sheathing. The second sheet is the actual underlayment, and typically what's used is what they call a peel and stick. There's several manufacturers. It's a fairly thin sheet of modified asphalt with a non-woven polyester surface. They peel the backing off and it sticks in place to the anchor sheet. The alternative we've given on the bid form and in the scope of work would be for a full modified underlayment manufactured by Certainteed. This is a much thicker fiberglass reinforced material used normally in exposed flat roofs. This will give you a much longer life, much better impact resistance. It's more money, but the protection is well worth it. But there's only 2 layers. There's the anchor sheet that's nailed to the building, and then there's the underlayment sheet that's installed on top of that anchor sheet.
Thank you. All right, the next question is going to go to Richard too. It's a technical one. Are the nails on the edge of the first row covered with adhesive to prevent future leaks?
The nails in the first row, that's the eave course. The nails are required by code in addition to the foam adhesive. And prior to setting that tile, a strip of adhesive sealant is run across the underlayment where the nails or screws go through to seal it. You can't put anything on top of the nails because that would be on top of the tile. But they are driven through a stripe of sealant that's put there for that very reason.
Thank you. The next question. Are we limited to the 3 roofers? Absolutely not. You can select any roofer you want. Of course, they have to pull a permit and go through the ARC regardless. And we strongly recommend that whatever roofer you use still works off of that scope of service. It's detailed. And again, going back to some of my original comments, it's a high quality roof replacement. So no, you're not limited to the 3. Next question, is the consultant available to do inspections for the homeowners? No, this poor guy wants to retire. Okay. Question, if you don't need the required 5 sheets of plywood and 40 feet of fascia, do you get a credit? So if you go back to the scope of service, it requires 5 sheets of plywood and 40 feet of fascia. And usually you do not get the credit, but I guess it won't hurt to ask. So that's up to you.
Sure.
Should the fascia be painted on all sides? The answer is yes. Want to paint it on all sides before they put it up.
Well, it should be primed on all sides. Only the outside surface needs to be painted, but it needs to be primed all four sides.
Okay. Next question. Does the contractor obtain the permit as part of the contract price? Yes, it's normally included in the base contract price. The next question was, would the consultant prepare a homeowners / contractors AIA contract with the specs he created? It would be an attachment to the contract. Well, we discussed that. Richard doesn't believe he should be making contracts, and each preferred vendor has their own form of a contract. So no, we won't do that.
Well, just to expound on that, that puts me in a legal position if I actually draft the contract. The simplest thing to do is to go through the scope of work and the recommendations with whichever contractor you choose, and make sure that the scope of work is attached as an exhibit to the contract.
Okay. Question: replacement gutters. That's part of the scope of work. Who does the gutters? What kind of gutters? Well, Walsh Company, that's one of the three preferred vendors, does their own gutter work. The other two sub it out. It's very important that the gutters you have installed are matte finished so they can be painted to match the same colors of the existing gutters or the gutters that came down or the downspouts or whatever. So it's a paintable surface, and it's paintable surface when you get a matte finish. Another question was, what happens about canceling the contract if you get into it? And I believe that is something between each particular roofer and the resident. I'm sure they have different cancellation clauses, don't they?
Yeah, that would be a legal issue.
That's a legal issue, and I guess it's between the vendor and the homeowner. So that covers the questions that I had sent to me prior to this meeting.
Okay. So Richard, one person asked about Walsh and Campany and Laytite. Would you give a little background on those three? Like, you've worked with those people, the experience they've had, et cetera. Could you give a little background on that, please, for those three? Even though they've been on the website, that's okay. Just hear it from you, their abilities.
There are three contractors of many that I've worked with, but these three contractors, I've literally done millions of dollars worth of work with them. Laytite is the largest tile installer in the state of Florida. Campany is probably larger in size than Laytite, but they do a lot more flat work, other types of roof systems. Walsh has been around for 25 years or so. I actually hired Mike Walsh when I used to run the roofing division of Hawthorne Industries back in the 80s. I hired him when I left there. He left and formed his own company, and he's not as large as the other two, but he's been very dependable. And I would not recommend, I normally don't recommend a contractor anyway, but these three I've used extensively over the years, and I've been very impressed with their performance and the quality of their work. So I feel comfortable recommending them.
Okay, another one for Richard, and this will answer about 42 questions. The tiles. Would you explain to us about tile right now, tile manufacturing, what can match, why we had Burrell, why you brought the Burrell to us, and why these are the ones that we ended up with? Okay.
Well, currently the tile that you have now is a Pioneer tile. Pioneer went out of business. It was bought by Integra. Integra was bought by Burrell. So there's a lot of consolidation in the tile industry over the years. And currently As far as concrete tile are concerned, there's only two that are available here, Eagle and Boral, and Boral is by far the largest. There are other tile available, but they're brought in from out of state, and the shipping gets very expensive. Boral has a couple of plants, manufacturing plants, so they can typically deliver fairly quickly. And Boral bought Integra, who bought Pioneer, so Boral is the closest to the original configuration that you had. And honestly, if you replace one roof with Boral tile and compare it to the house next door, you probably won't notice much of a difference, except that the color is going to be much brighter because it's new. But it's the same basic profile, and all concrete tile manufacturers make a double roll tile, which is what this is.
Okay, thank you very much. So the bottom line is on the tile questions, I hope this answers a lot of them. Russ, Richard, and the group, the Boral tile people came to us. He was actually here when Laytite laid these original roofs, just so you're going to find that out eventually anyway. So we might as well tell you, not that that matters, but Laytite are the ones that laid these original roofs. This person was around when Laytite laid the original roof. So he was not only familiar with what the colors look like now, but he's familiar with what the original color looked like because he was here in 2001. So what he did is he matched the color tiles. Those color tiles that he matched are going to be by roof number. So if you have our house, Barb's and my house is a 5. So there's a tile for a 5, and someone else might have a 9. And so there's a tile for a 9. That's why Russ said that the tile number list, in case you'd forgotten or in case you're new, it's on the website. So you can look and see what your roof number is. If you want to see the tile that would go, I have a question. One of these are one of the questions. If you want to see the tile that would go on your house, you can email D, and that's the only way to do it, is to email D. Make an appointment with D, and D will show you the tile that would go in your house. As far as profile is concerned, I had a question on that, and profile is like what it looks like. Is it flat or is it, bowed or whatever? The double rolled profile, medium profile, is the one that you will be seeing. And that is the one, as Henry mentioned in the beginning, in our documents, the art committee has to make sure that it goes with the rest of the community. So it's a double rolled tile. As Richard said, it'll look like the ones we have. The color will match as well as they could be matched. It will look brighter because these are 20 years old, of course, but it'll be bright and clean and nice. And if you're super curious, simply email Dee, and she can show you the tile that would go on your house. The question has the consultant ever done a project like Valencia Falls? The consultant has done, Richard, I can tell you this. Let me tell you this. And I don't have to toot his own horn, but I have 34 people in my group. So whenever something like that comes up, I send a note out to the group, just like they do to me, and say, do you have any ideas on a roofing consultant? Everyone came back with Richard Campbell. Every single one. So has he done projects? Yeah, he does projects. Everybody around here, he's the consultant for it. Someone asked a very good question, and Richard or Russ can answer this, but I think the answer is no, but I don't know that. Is there likely to be a significant difference in pricing between the vendors? I don't know the answer to that. You'll have to ask the vendors, but Richard, do you think there will be a significant difference in pricing between the three if they got 3 different bids? I don't know.
There's going to be a difference. How much is going to depend on the quote they get from their suppliers. But okay. I always strongly recommend you get at least 3 bids. That's why we came up with 3 contractors.
Right. Someone asked, can we change the design of the roof? No, we have to stick with, as we've said before, and I think what this person means is, can we go with like a flat tile or something else? They mentioned another community. We're going to go with what we have here. Russ, how many Valencia Fall residents have already replaced their roofs? That's a very good question. It's a handful, right?
Yeah, it's not that many. I couldn't tell you the exact number, but there has been some roof replacement. I don't know an exact number, but it hasn't been a lot.
Okay, someone asked, are solar roofs acceptable? I don't know what you mean by that. So I would say to you, if you have a roof that, if you see the scope of work that we have, if you have a particular roof that if you want certain solar panels or something, that's something that you ARC, as Henry said in the beginning, you go to ARC with that. So whatever roof, whatever question you have on that, you'll have to go to ARC with it. So ARC can see, right, Rob, what in particular? You can chime in here, Rob.
That's correct. The ARC has approved solar panels in the community before, so that could be part and parcel with the renovation of the roof. So
This is, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
It's not a new idea.
Okay. This is just really a very good question. Not that the others aren't, but this one is excellent. Richard, you're going to be on this one. What are the advantages and disadvantages of the alternates, and will they extend the life of the roof? Great question, by the way. What are the advantages and disadvantages of the alternates, and will they extend the life of the roof? Okay.
Okay, there are three basic underlayment types. The first is 90-pound roll roofing, which has been used for many, many years, but it has a life expectancy of maybe 16 years if properly installed. I don't recommend that 90-pound roll roofing be used anymore because they call it 90-pound because a roll used to weigh 90 pounds. A roll now weighs about 58 pounds. So that gives you an idea that it's much thinner and it won't last as long. What I recommend is what they call a peel and stick. There are several manufacturers. As I said before, it's a fairly thin modified asphalt with a paper backing that peels off, and it has an unwoven polyester surfacing. That's the most common underlayment used under tile these days. And you'll see a lot of it, especially in developments, when you see what looks like a white or gray roof with writing on it. That's the peel and stick underlayment. That has a life expectancy, we're guessing, of about maybe 20 years if properly installed. The third option that I show as an option is the Certainteed modified bitumen. This is a very heavy membrane. It has 170-gram fiberglass mat as the reinforcement. It's saturated and coated with modified asphalt. That's asphalt modified with a plasticizer so that it stays flexible, and then covered with mineral surfacing. This is a material that's normally used on exposed flat roofs. That's what you've got on the flat roofs on the clubhouse here. And those are normally eligible for a 20 to 25-year warranty exposed to the sun. Under tile, we're not sure how long it will last, but I installed a modified underlayment under tile as an experiment over in Palm Beach 30 years ago, and it's still there and it's still performing.
How many years was that you cut out? How many years ago?
30 years ago.
30, okay.
Yeah. The other benefit to the higher grade underlayment is puncture resistance. If we get a strong hurricane, you're going to get some broken tile from flying debris. That's inevitable. But the underlayment would be exposed wherever tile are broken, and the peel and stick will start degrading within a few months. It can't be left exposed for extended periods of time. The Certainteed modified can be left exposed for the next 20 years with no degradation. Because it's on a slope and it drains properly, it will last longer than it will on a flat roof. But it's very difficult to puncture. You cannot tear it. It's about as bulletproof of a tile system as you could get. And that's why I recommend that it be considered. It's more money. It'll probably be an increase of maybe 15% in the overall cost of the roof. But from my perspective, it's money well spent in protecting your home.
Thank you. This is for Henry and Rob. If we use a recommended contractor, select the current who will select the current color as guaranteed. In other words, what they're saying is, if we go with this plan, will ARC automatically approve it? In other words, are these people pre-qualified with the plan and the so go ahead, Henry and Rob.
Go ahead, Rob.
I think the ARC will approve these contractors with a favorable view. However, I think that as time goes on, these contractors are also going to have their licenses and their insurance constantly updated, which I'm sure they are. They'll certainly be looked at favorably, but there's no rubber stamp.
Okay. Richard, are these the only state certified roofers? I'd assume the answer to that's no. There's other state certified roofers, right?
There are a lot of them.
Right.
Just as an example, my license, which I got in 1990, is 51,000. They're working on 1.6 million right now. So not all those guys are still in business, but there are a lot of state certified roofing contractors out there. And a state certification doesn't ensure a quality job. If you're going to use somebody that's not on the approved list, you really need to do your homework. You need to investigate, you need to get references, you need to check their license and complaints, etc. And you need to check their insurance coverage.
And I think, as Henry said in his opening comments, and he was very eloquent with that, this is a recommendation, and we're trying to streamline the process for you. We're trying to we're recommending people that Richard has seen be able to do the work before. And so what we're doing is, this is simply a recommendation to maybe take care of some of the, I don't think you have to, you could Google them, but I don't think you have to Google them to find out their background. So I think that's the point there. We have a few questions that I can merge here. They're talking about volume discounts, and I have to tell you, when we got into this, I'm sure that a lot of people are hoping for that. And I think that this is something that we did talk to 3 vendors, and I think this is kind of cool. So you need to know this. The bidders conference that we had, all 3 vendors were there. So all 3 vendors heard the same conversation. All 3 vendors got asked the exact same questions. These 3 gentlemen that are on the website sat in our conference room with Russ and Richard, and were put through the ringer. And they, that's how things like a 10-year warranty come out, things like that. So all 3 vendors were there. And so I guess the bottom line is, I think that the volume discount thing came up as well. So Richard, I think I'm going to have you again answer that, because I think that you can talk about a way that if there's a way they could streamline their work, they give something. So go ahead, walk through that, because you were part of it too.
Well, volume discount would only be possible where they have a group of homeowners that get together and all agree to sign a contract for basically the same thing. And the contractors all said that that's possible, but it's going to depend on people signing a contract. In other words, if they gave a group discount for 5 homeowners, if 2 of them decided not to sign the contract, they couldn't guarantee the discount. They basically said it's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
They also discussed proximity. They also go ahead.
Yeah.
Explain why the proximity works.
Well, because when if there are 5 homes on one street, they will come in, they'll mobilize, do the first home. They only have to move down the street to the other homes. If they have to move to another part of the community, They literally have to remobilize, and there's a cost attached to that. So they can't give a discount for 5 homes that are spread out throughout the community. They would have to be fairly close to each other, preferably on the same street.
Okay.
If I may add something?
Henry, absolutely.
Yeah, there are 2 aspects to getting a discount. One is, as Richard pointed out, if a number of people get together and sign a contract essentially as a group with a particular contractor in a manner that makes the job easier and less expensive to the contractor, then the contractor can offer a discount without losing any money or any of his profits. Another aspect of a discount or quantity discount is if you provide more profit to a contractor and he's willing to take a little bit less per job. But the bottom line is that the group is going to have, if there is a group that gets formed, it's going to be up to the group to negotiate with the contractor. And all of the factors that go into the favor of you getting a discount, you will be responsible for bringing it up as part of the negotiation. We were not able to guarantee anything with respect to price or contract. And we already discussed the fact that the price is so variable because of when the contract is signed and what are the costs of the materials, that is simply not reasonable for us to demand or to request any particular price or any particular discount.
That is very well said. Thank you very much. Yes, somebody asked, are county permits required? Absolutely, permits are required. I don't even have to go to the experts for that one. Some people are asking about gutters and vents. I think we've said a few times, but so Russ, Richard, the gutters and vents are all going to be replaced by these 3 vendors at least. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, the vents have to be replaced by code. You can't use a vent, although some roofers in addition, any wall flashing, if there is any present, they will have to cut the stucco out, replace the metal flashing, repatch the stucco, and then paint it to match. That's in the scope of work, and these 3 contractors have agreed to that. As far as gutters are concerned, I put gutters in there simply because in 30 some odd years in South Florida, whenever a roof is replaced, even though the gutter may be functional and look just fine before the roof is replaced, once it's done and you've got that nice, bright, clean new roof, the gutter looks terrible. And people decide to replace the gutter after the fact, and you want to do it in conjunction with the roof, not after, because they'll damage the drip edge. So in the interest of aesthetics, and not having to go back and pay more money to have a contractor come in and do the gutters, we included it with the re-roofing scope of work.
And then the painting will be in there too. So they have to go ahead on that. They have to paint. Somebody asked about painting of the fascia, painting of the gutters. That's all. They will put it back. Go ahead.
They won't paint the gutters.
But the painting of the fascia.
Yeah, well, that gets for the gutters.
That gets, the fascia gets painted. Okay. So what you're saying is the fascia will get painted because that's all part of the installation. The gutters won't necessarily get painted, right? Go ahead.
Paint the gutters.
Okay.
That match them. They'll match them to the color of the building as close as they can. But typically, it's a fairly close match because there are a lot of colors, and it gets painted when the house gets painted.
Okay.
As far as the fascia goes, they're only going to paint the fascia they replace. They're not going to paint all of the fascia.
Okay. So the fascia would have to be, so what we'd have to do is we'd have for the gutters and the fascia, Russ and Dee will have the paint. Okay. The vendor will first get the paint number, whatever the paint number, SW 1250 or whatever it is. They'll paint whatever they replace, that color, And then the rest of it, you'll have to make sure it gets painted that color is what it comes down to. Okay, is Palm Beach County code the same as Miami-Dade?
Yes. Yeah, they both fall under the Florida building code, the high wind hurricane zone section.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what the lead time is for each contractor to start a project?
Wow, that's gonna depend on the contractor's workload, how many projects he's involved in, got signed up, et cetera. It's also a function of how quickly we can get a permit out. Sometimes the building departments lately have been very, very slow about getting permits out. It's going to depend on how quickly we can get materials. Right now, the lead time for tile is 14 to 18 weeks, depending on the color, and it may be longer. We're having difficulty getting foam adhesive. Nails and tin tags are getting scarce and getting more expensive. Hopefully, this will settle down early next year. But right now, it's very difficult. That's one of the reasons we can't even come up with a ballpark number for the homes, because material prices and availability is so variable right now. But
yeah,
you know, typically under normal circumstances, once a contract's signed, we should have a permit within a couple of weeks. And typically the construction will start within 30 days of signing the contract. Right now, all bets are off. It's going to be, you'd have to ask the contractor, and I would ask them before you sign a contract, because that may influence your choice. But yeah, it's going to vary by the contractor, by his workload, and by material availability.
okay. Someone asked, are metal roofs allowed in Florida? Yes, metal roofs are allowed in Florida. Are they better than tile roofs? I think that's probably a long answer. Are they better than tile roofs?
Better in what way?
I don't know. I don't know what they mean.
If they're properly designed and installed, a metal roof can last indefinitely as long as it's maintained. Standing seam systems, the fasteners are hidden, and as long as any cut edges are treated and it's kept fairly clean, it can last indefinitely. After 20, 25 years, you would need to clean, prime, and paint it. But as I say, properly installed and properly designed, they can last indefinitely. It's more money.
But metal roofs are not part of this project because we've got a double rolled medium profile roof. So that and it's not metal. It's not part of
documents. I don't think
no,
documents
no.
allow metal roofs.
Well, it's not part of the ARC. Yeah, that would be part of what ARC does. I think people are trying to get prices, Richard, and they're trying to get a ballpark. I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, I just don't know how you feel about throwing a ballpark out there. I mean, it depends on the house and everything else. So I just don't. I think what the best thing to do is to call the vendor, and if you just want to get a ballpark, call one of the vendors. If you're really interested in replacing the roof, call all three vendors and get prices. But if you want a ballpark, call a vendor and have them check it out for you for pricing. I don't think we want to get. I don't think we want to be quoted on any prices.
No,
Go ahead.
They'll give you a free estimate, but you know, don't expect that price to hold for any appreciable length of time.
This is a good question. Does foam eliminate a zillion nail holes in the membrane under the tiles? I don't know that the foam. Explain the process. What part is nailed? Why this is different than the tacked on roof? Because you said, does foam eliminate a zillion nail holes in the membrane under the tiles?
Essentially, yes. The anchor sheet is nailed, then the underlayment is installed over that, and it's head nailed, and the next sheet above it covers those nails. So there's no exposed fasteners. The two installation methods for tile that are normally used are mechanically attached, which means the tile has 2 nails or screws in the head, each tile, or it's foamed in place using a polyiso 2-part foam. And the foam, it's a large patty, and it's placed offset slightly under the tile, and then the tile is set in it so that that foam pad, as it expands, it contacts the underside of the tile and the edge of the tile next to it and below it. They usually will put a little extra foam on the head of the tile below it so that you have foam between the tiles as well. That has been the installation method of choice. And it's the only method of installation that I will recommend. The mechanically attached, you have, as I say, 2 fasteners at the head of each tile, but nothing else holding the tile, which in a high wind will, since the nails are at the head of the tile, the tile will shatter and typically break. It'll loosen the nail hole. We found over the years that a lot of mechanically attached roof systems have seeped water in at a lot of the fastener holes, because the tile will move. It's a wood structure. The tile will move over time with wind, with traffic on it, whatever. So the foam installation is much preferred. You also get a higher wind resistance with foam attachment. After Hurricane Andrew, when we started doing testing of foam attachment, we actually foamed wet tile to wet plywood with no underlayment, and then used a strain gauge to pull that tile off, and it literally delaminated the plywood. It was that strong. So yeah, it does eliminate all those fasteners in all the heads of the tile, except for that first course. That's required.
Thank you. On that same vein, someone asked, is there, during the construction process, is there protection from the rain during the process? In other words, this particular resident is concerned, well, boy, what if I start getting my roof replaced and it rains? Is it going to damage? What did they do there?
Well, and anything they tear off has to be covered the same day. And in case they get caught in the rain during the day, they have large tarps. They'll get them up and they'll get the area that they're working on covered up very quickly, because they're responsible for any damage to the interior if it leaks while they're working on it. But the dry sheet, the anchor sheet, is installed first, and that has to be completely installed, and all of the metal flashings installed in order to get an inspection from the county. So that will be exposed before they put the underlayment on. But that is 30-pound asphalt felt, and it will shed water. It's designed to do that. The house will not leak. And again, if it does, the contractor is responsible for any damage.
Mm-hmm. Okay. On that same vein, someone asked, what is the white covering I've seen placed above the black waterproofing material? So apparently this resident has seen a roof being replaced, and they saw a white covering that was that had over a black material. So do you know what they're talking about?
Yeah.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Yeah. The white covering, if it had writing on it, is the peel and stick. If it didn't have writing on it, it's the modified. Those are the payments.
Yes. Someone else is talking about, can they choose another tile color? No. Basically, what it comes down to is, just like before, each roof has a number, like you have like a roof 11 or roof 9 or roof 7 or roof 5, and they have a tile color that goes with them that's been matched already. So no, the tile colors are, as Henry said in the beginning, the profile and tile colors are the only constraints. We don't, someone asked, can there be, and it's a good question. I don't know what the answer to this is, Russ, because we've kicked this around. because Richard wants to retire. We tried. Henry tried, actually. Can there be a list of inspectors available to us? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that. I mean, Richard, what direction, if someone's looking for an inspector, what direction would you give them?
Well, you can look up roofing consultants. You're going to pay quite a bit to have them come out and inspect. But you have to understand that during different phases of the construction, your home is going to be inspected by the county as well. As they're tearing it off, the county will inspect to make sure that the sheathing, the plywood sheathing, has been replaced if it was rotten or damaged, and it's been re-nailed to meet the current code. They then will come out to inspect the anchor sheet and the metal flashings. They'll come out to inspect the underlayment, and then they'll come out to inspect the tile installation. And the contractors are now required to do a pull test on the tile once it's complete. And they use a strain gauge, or they'll hire an engineer to come in and do that and certify that the roof meets code for wind uplift. So you already get certain inspections. If you hire someone else, typically for residents, I've been hired to do that many, many times, but mine is just in addition to the county or municipal inspectors coming in, because they're verifying that it meets code.
Okay. Russ, you can answer these questions because you haven't had a question for a while. People are saying, you said very well in your comments, and Henry did too. These are recommendations if you want to replace a roof. We're not saying you should replace a roof. You know what? If you said if your roof is leaking, go ahead. If your roof is leaking, or insurance, go ahead.
If your roof is leaking and you've had more than one leak, in fact, I've talked to several different residents and they said, this is the second time I'm patching a leak. I'm saying, well, I would think about the roof if I was you. Maybe you get away with one, but then you got another area and you got the second one, and it's time. That's number one. Number two is, as Richard said, these are 18-year roofs. They're already 20 years old. And so as time goes on, they're going to get, they're going to get more worn, they're getting older. And the third thing is, and I didn't have it personally, because I have a home that has a roof from 1996 on it. I'm considered replacing my roof, but the insurance coverage. I had more than one resident call me and say, look, they're giving me a hard time about renewing my policy because of the age of the roof. So those are the factors. It's you're already built in. You're already 2 years over what it's supposed to last.
Well, if I could just add, one of the things that I mentioned, it's not just the leaks, the history of leaks, but you can actually take a walk around your home and look at the gutter. You can see behind the gutter, you can see part of the fascia board sticking down. Look at that all the way around and see if there's any stains on it. Because if there's any brown stains on it, look like drips or anything like that, or if it actually looks like it's damaged or rotting, you have a leak in the roof. That's not the gutter leaking. That's the roof leaking at the eave edge, which is typically where they start. And quite often you'll see staining on the fascia long before you ever see a leak inside the building. But that's an indicator that it's failing, and a tile roof will always fail, assuming you don't have any leaks from a valley or a penetration, or there's damage. It'll always fail first at the eave edge.
Go ahead.
Comment too, that the houses were painted last year, and there was a lot of fascia board replacing. And if you were 25 feet of fascia board replaced, he just said it.
There's a reason.
If you had 2 or 3 feet, maybe you got another year or two. But if you had a lot of fascia board repair, it's leaking.
And the thing is, we're not trying to scare anybody here or anything like that. All we're saying, we we're doing this because residents have asked us to do it. Residents have come to us and said, can you help us? Because we've done other things. We have. I mean, this board has been, and I thank my fellow board members at the beginning, and I'll do it again. This board has been very, very proactive in coming up with programs or suggestions for people to like I said, enhance their lifestyle, enhance their home. So this is something we're doing, but certainly we're not saying you should. We're not saying you shouldn't. That's got to be up to you. I think that so someone said if they haven't had a leak, why should they do it? That's again up to them. But I'll tell you one thing. One of the reasons why I've been interested in this is, like I said, I'm in this group of 34 other presidents. And one of our big concerns was, and Richard, you're probably aware of this as well, but in Tallahassee this year, there was lots of bills with insurance companies and roofing companies fighting back and forth. I think we're going to get killed the next time our insurance comes up. I really do. I don't know that, but I think we will. Mine's up in February and I'm bracing myself. And they are not going to do, they're going to say, if your roof is a certain age, I don't know what they're going to say, but it isn't going to be good. If your roof is a certain age, you're going to get dinged. And we had a very thoughtful resident ask a question here on that a moment ago. And the person asked, if you use the upgraded underlay, can that affect your insurance and lower rate? In other words, I think what this person's saying is, does the insurance company factor in just the age, or does it factor in what your roof was, what they used for your roof?
They don't. Well, they factor in what type of roof it is: tile, shingles, etc. But they're not going to factor in what the underlayment is. The insurance company's primary concern is not just the age, but code compliance.
Right.
If you have a new roof and you have the signed off permit, that means that it meets current code for attachment. And that's what they're worried about. The nailing of the anchor sheet, because they use far more nails and tags than they ever used to. And that gets upgraded every time the code goes through a revision. The plywood sheeting, nailing, that all gets re-nailed with ring shank nails. All of that gets upgraded every time we go through another code revision cycle. So that's what their main concern is the attachment method. You have a new roof, it meets current code, therefore, actually you get a discount for that on your premium. That's the mitigation report, and that's probably the largest discount that you'll get is for a new roof.
All right, and someone asked on that same vein, and that's why I scroll through these questions and I try and put them, Russ knows what I do, I try and get them kind of together. How much would the insurance be reduced? We don't know. That would have to be with your insurance company. I don't know the, yeah.
Well, I replaced my roof. I don't have impact windows, but I have storm panels for all the windows, metal panels that are date approved. I got from State Farm, I got a 30% reduction.
Oh, there you go. See, that's even better than I thought we could say. So he got a 30%. We have a couple people that kind of have a question together again. They want to know, with installation, permits, inspections, how long, what would be the time frame beginning to end to replace a roof? I guess it'd be once you get your permit, right? I don't know how long it takes to get a permit.
Well, we kind of answered that a little earlier. From the time that the permit's issued to the time they complete it is going to depend on material availability and logistics. If everything works out, if the tile is available, the foam's available, etc. And I haven't been on any of these roofs, but typically a residential roof, they can have it off, back on, say within 3 weeks, 3 weeks to a month, depends on how quickly they can get the tile. Because as they tear it off, they put the anchor sheet down. Once the entire roof's torn off and the anchor sheet's in place and all the metal flashings in place, they get it inspected, they'll immediately come in and put the underlayment down. Then the tile gets delivered and then they install it. So it depends on how many crews they've got out there, how busy they are, how quickly they can get materials delivered. Because once the underlayment goes on, the roof can sit there for a couple of months before they have to load tile.
Yeah. So, I mean, the process, and this is again, is why when people talked about some sort of discount, it's streamlining the process, right? In other words, I assume if they were going to do houses on a street, they would do things you'd bring in crews that do that for all those houses. Is that correct? The different
Yeah,
processes.
typically they have a drying crew that tears the roof off and dries it in, puts down the anchor sheet. And when they finish one house, they'll just move to the next one. Then you've got 2 or 3 guys that'll come in and run all the metal flashing. Then they'll move on to the next one. And then they've got a crew that does just the underlayment. And, they go house to house. And that's why I say, once you're set up in a neighborhood, moving trucks back and forth up and down the street is no big deal. If you have to move clear across the property, that amounts to remobilizing. And that's why, in order to get a potential discount, they really all need to be on the same street.
Okay, so on that same vein, someone asked Russ, how do they find out who wants a roof replacement so he can get together with them?
Who?
Someone wants to know, well, how do they find out? In other words, someone's like, well, that's a great idea. If I want to replace my roof, I would like to know if there's someone else on my street. I mean, I think they've just got to talk to their neighbor. Go ahead.
Talk to your neighbors, use the message board.
Yeah. Good idea. How do you judge when to repair or replace? I think that we've talked about that in that, Henry, did you have your hand up? You're cutting out.
You're on mute, Henry.
You're on mute. You're on mute. Henry, you're on mute. Go ahead, bud.
I don't see the button. Something is.
You're good. You're good. You're good. You did it. You did it. Whatever you did, it. Don't touch it.
The button isn't showing. I was going to answer this question last time it was addressed in a couple of ways. Number one is when your roof isn't leaking, why should you change it? That reminds me of something that happened to me recently when my plumber came to me and said, your hot water heater is in Pennsylvania. Your hot water heater is at the end of life. It can start leaking any day now. I recommend you replace it. Okay, it was not thousands of dollars, but the end result was the same. I decided to replace it. So because the roof is coming to the end of life, you might want to decide to change it simply because you don't want to have the problem. Now, what problem are we talking about? We're talking about problem of a leak in the roof. Roof leaks are very insidious. Just because you have a leak someplace doesn't mean that the water started right above it. It could have started almost any other place and you wouldn't know it. So when you ask for an artisan or a roof repair person to fix a leak, it's not quite guaranteed that they're going to do the job right. So when you do have a leak, and by the time you notice it, it may be a problem. And that may be another reason why you would want to replace a roof before even the leak is recognized. Anyways, that's
okay. Thank you.
And one other thing regarding insurance. I don't know how it is in Florida, but in other places, insurance companies sometimes simply say, we choose to not renew your insurance. And then you are in real trouble.
I mean, Henry's right. And I think you can wait till your insurance comes, but I am telling you, as my fellow presidents and I were aghast at what was happening in Tallahassee. I mean, the roofers and the insurance companies were going at it. I'm going to tell you, the insurance companies I think one. I mean, they just are not going to give us the same. I don't think they're going to give us the same type of insurance as they have in the past. And what's happened is, you know the story. Everybody here knows the story. You've had these fly-by-night roofers going around telling people, Richard, you know the story. I'll give you a free roof and we'll blame it on Irma, right? Go ahead. You know it, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've run into that times.
It-
And I consider that collusion between the insurance adjuster and the contractor. But what happens is, in every instance I'm aware of, the contractor has come in and replaced the roof for a much higher price than it was worth, billed the insurance company, and the agent got a cut. And, that's fraud. That's absolute fraud.
But then what they did, and they said, because of this, it's such a scale. Then they said, because of this, we're not going to insure the roofs by as much anymore. So they're, yeah.
Right. Because these contractors are saying, oh, well, the roof's 20 years old. It's shot. It's way beyond its lifespan. It needs to be replaced. And the insurance companies were going along with it. And just because a roof is 20 years old does not mean it needs to be replaced immediately. You'll find that some of the houses in here have no evidence of leakage, no evidence at the fascia board or anything else, and they could very easily go another 2 or 3 years before there's an issue. But I guarantee that every home in here, if you were to tear off every roof in here, is going to have some rotten plywood. They all leak at this point. You just don't know it.
And I noticed what you said, it could go another 2 or 3 years. You didn't say another bunch of years. So that's why
you have a 90-pound roll roofing underlayment. It's heavier than the stuff that they make today, but it's paper. It's paper coated and saturated with asphalt. And once it starts to deteriorate, it breaks down.
we have a home. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rob.
Most people look at their tile and they look from the outside. The tile looks great. Everything is fine, but they don't realize that the secret sauce is the underlayment, and everything underneath it has a shelf life or a life of its own. And once that deteriorates, all the nails that have been used in our current roof are penetrating that roof, and that underlayment is dying right now, and that's where the problem is. And that's why
what happens with asphalt materials, particularly the old 90-pound roll roofing, is asphalt, when it ages, it oxidizes, it hardens, and it shrinks. So what happens is, as that underlayment shrinks, it pulls itself away from the pipe penetrations, from the nails, etc., and you end up with leakage out in the field of the roof. When we start seeing leaks out in the open field of the roof, we know that the roof is beyond repair. It cannot be repaired. It needs to be replaced immediately. That's a worst case scenario, but yeah, the roof is the underlayment. The tile protects it from the sun and looks really nice, but the underlayment is the roof, part you don't see.
Okay, so I have 2 questions on that vein. The first one is, do they use stainless steel nails? Stainless steel nails.
For tile, yes.
Okay. Second one is, and I have something on that vein too. Someone said, well, maybe to save money, he can reuse the same tiles.
I've heard that from insurance companies. I've heard that.
I asked that question.
Actually insist on it. Well, the problem is you're going to break some tile when you take them off. So you're never going to have enough tile to completely redo the job, assuming all the tile were in perfect condition. The labor involved in stacking those tile, getting them down to the ground without breaking them, and reloading them on the roof, it exceeds the cost of the tile. We've done the calculations many, many times. The labor alone just wipes out any savings and then some for reusing the tile. Plus the fact that if you look at the tile, if you were to go up on your roof or look at the tile when they start tearing it off, you'll find they're concrete, they're weathered. the surface, it's like a sidewalk. The surface has what they call cream on it. That's pure cement. You wear that down a little bit and you get to the aggregate, the rock that makes up the bulk of the sidewalk. And it's the same thing with tile. If you look at it close, you're going to see all these tiny little pebbles in it. And that's why the tile grays out as it ages. You're getting into the actual concrete cement aggregate itself. It'll look, well, if your neighbor puts a new roof on and you reuse your tile is going to look dingy. But again, you're going to end up paying more money because the labor alone, it makes it prohibitive. And we finally convinced the insurance companies of that.
Thank you. On that vein, Russ, someone wants to know why we're power washing the roofs now. Won't it cause problems? We aren't power washing the roofs. They're spraying it with Echo Roof, correct? And I think Dee sent out the process. Go ahead.
Yeah. They're spraying with Echo Roof, and
It's not a power wash.
they're going to have new roofs, so the roofs need to be clean.
Someone again is asking about colors. The colors have been the colors for the roofs have been matched. The original paint colors were matched with the roof color. So what we've done is we've come up with Burrell's help. I shouldn't say we. Burrell has matched the roof colors as well as they can. That will go with what we have. So the colors are what. If anybody's interested in seeing it again, they can email Dee. Will there be a county inspection of the work? Yes. Tell them what the county inspects, Richard.
Yeah, well, we said this before. The county is going to inspect the sheathing once the roof's torn off to make sure they want to inspect the renailing of the sheathing and that any damaged or rotten plywood is replaced. They then will inspect the anchor sheet and metal flashings before the underlayment's installed. They'll then inspect the underlayment and they'll do a final inspection on the tile. But in addition to that, the contractor will do an uplift test to make sure. That's the only way you really know that all the tile are bonded properly.
On that same vein, someone wanted you to recap the underlayment, what you're using. Go ahead and give them what you're using for the recommended underlayment. We can say it one more time and that would be it, but you can give that one more time. They just want to hear it again. Maybe they didn't hear it the first time.
It starts with the anchor sheet, 30-pound roll roofing. There are other products available, but the most common is 30-pound asphalt felt roll roofing that's nailed with tin tags and nails to the sheathing. Then the peel and stick underlayment, they take off the paper backing and they stick it down to the 30-pound felt. The standard peel and stick is a thin modified material with a paper backing that you pull off and a non-woven polyester fleece surface. What I recommend is that be upgraded to a full modified. Certainteed is the only one approved for this. And that's why I use the brand name. But a Certainteed modified underlayment, which is much thicker. It's the material you used on your flat deck here on the clubhouse. It has a mineral surface. It's reinforced with fiberglass. It's much thicker, much stronger, much more puncture resistant. I personally think you get a better bond with the foam to the mineral surfacing than you do to the polyester surfacing of the peel and stick, but they both test to exceed code. So
thank you. There's my cat. I knew she'd be up here. I knew she'd make an appearance since it's being recorded. Someone asked, and I don't know what this means. I'm not even close to a roofing expert. Will the roofer double strap the roof? Right now I have a single strap.
No, you're not strapping the roof. What they're referring to is the truss attachment to the wall plate. That's inside. Typically, if the homes are in here are approximately 20 years old, you have a single wrap. Okay, that means there's a strap that comes out of, it's attached to the top plate, or it comes out of the concrete beam over the truss end, and it's nailed on both sides.
Okay.
Double strap would be one that goes over both directions. You can do that. The contractor will add that if you so desire. It's more money, quite a bit more money. In order to access the truss ends, I don't know as you go up through the soffit, but typically what the contractor will do will take off the first course of sheathing all the way around the building so that he can access the top of the wall, and he'll put another strap in. You can do that. It's not required. Single strap meets code. And it meets the insurance company's requirements. They would prefer a double strap, don't get me wrong. And down the road, they may push that, but again, a double strap, you know, it's higher wind resistance, but it's also substantially more money.
Well, but you said these particular tiles, not, I know this is the roof, but these particular tiles are graded to somewhere around, that's for tiles. That's a tile.
What we're talking about with the straps.
Right. Right. But these are to code. And so the code should, the way it's being done. All right. Do the recommended vendors take away the old roofing materials?
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Russ,
go ahead. They have to clean up on a daily basis, and they also will run a magnet several times a day to pick up any loose nails, screws, or anything like that.
That's good. Good for the tires. How long will the roofers be committed to this roofing system? Well, Russ, I mean, they're in the bit. What would your answer be? How long would they? Go ahead.
As long as they keep doing roofs.
Okay.
Now, one thing is, we did talk about this, Mike. If one of these roofers don't hold true to everything they promise, or the scope of service, or so on and so forth, we will remove them from the preferred vendor list, and we would add somebody else. We'd talk to Richard and see if there was somebody else we could add. But I mean, we designed this with the intent, and we've got the companies that have been around for a long time, so they'll be around for a while.
Henry, did you have a comment? Henry?
Yes, strictly speaking, they have not made a commitment as to how long they're going to basically do this. We have not signed anything with them, and there's no legal commitment on their part. They
Correct.
will do it because the customer asks for it, and they will continue doing it as long as it's worthwhile for them. If they decide to go out of business, or if they decide that something else is better, they will try to suggest it to the customer. But the bottom line is, we have not sought, nor did we get any kind of a commitment from them as to how long they're going to keep this going.
All right. So someone asked, how do we ensure that the selected roofer shows up and completes the project on a timely basis? So the answer to that is they've got to work with the roof. Go ahead. I mean, we've given people reliable recommendations. Okay. So how can they ensure it? I don't know. I mean, it's one of these things that when you work, just like you would with anyone else, any other vendor that you work with at your home, you have to make sure that you stay with them and on them. So we can't ensure anything. You're going to have to do that. And I think that every time Henry comes back to it, he tries to make sure it's clear that the relationship is going to be between you and the roofer. We're just giving you recommendations.
Something to take into consideration on that note, and I've seen this in many other communities, is when you get several contractors of any kind that do a good job, word spreads, and they end up getting a lot of work. But by the same token, when you get a contractor that doesn't hold up his end of the bargain, doesn't stick to his contract, word gets around about that too. And lose business. So, you know, the community, communication in the community is a real big factor in holding these guys to what they say they're going to do.
Okay. Absolutely. We have a couple vent questions. Someone said they just changed their vents. Are you saying the vents will have to be replaced again with a new roof?
They changed.
They just changed their vents. They just changed their vents, and they want to know if the vents will have to be replaced again with a new roof. I don't know, you know, the answer. That's going to have to be, they're going to have to talk to the vendor, I would assume, when the.
Well, I can't answer that because I don't know what vents they replaced.
Right. Okay.
You have plumbing vents and you have gooseneck vents.
Okay.
And you have attic vents in some cases. I don't know what they replaced or why. Fire vent, I don't know. But typically replace those vents unless you're replacing the roof. And what called for in the scope of work is 24 gauge G90 galvanized flashings and vents. So those will certainly last as long or longer than the tile roof will.
Yeah, on the vent, on the same vein as vents, someone asked, do vents come in different sizes, and can they? Would it be good to get a bigger vent, a bigger, different size vent? Well,
again, it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about a bathroom vent, typically the vents on a single-family home are only the size of the ductwork. There's no advantage to making the vent bigger. But again, you have plumbing vents, and that's a PVC pipe that has a lead flashing on it. Then you have dryer vents and bathroom and kitchen stove vents, and those are goosenecks. And again, the vent is sized by the duct. Making it bigger there's no advantage to that.
all right. Someone wants to know, are there any state code changes in the works that may impact the scope of services?
There's no changes in the works, but they just approved the new version of the code, and that is all. The contractor is required to conform to code. That's a law.
Right.
He's required to conform to the code in effect at the time the permit was pulled. In other words, if there's a code change while the home is being re-roofed, it doesn't apply.
Okay. Someone said, are the gutters on both sides of the house or only one, like on some homes? Again, they're going to replace if they replace the gutters, they're going to replace the gutters that are there. Is that correct? It says the gutters.
Yeah, they'll replace the gutters as they exist.
As they currently.
Gutter, if you want to add gutter, you can do that.
Somebody again is asking about pricing. We're not going to talk. They have to call a vendor to get an estimate. They'll do a free estimate. So the pricing questions. Somebody said, what happens to the warranties if a roofer goes out of business? I mean, one of the reasons why we recommended these three vendors is because they've been in a real long time. So the question is, what happens to the warranty if they go out? The warranty is with the vendor. That's the bottom line. But they've not only been in a long time, but they're doing a lot of work right now. Someone wants to know, if they do water testing, particularly around the flashing? I don't know if they're asking about testing when the roof is in. Do they do testing? What's the answer to that?
No, nobody does water testing. It's very easy to determine if the flashings are installed properly, and if they are, they're watertight. But I don't know. The only time water testing is ever done is if there's a leak and they can't find it.
Okay. Let's see. Those are cost questions. We've answered those. We only have a couple more questions left. People have just been terrific. I think we've got somebody that's concerned about, well, we actually have two. This kind of takes care of all of the rest of them pretty much. They want to know if, what's the best time of year to replace a roof?
Okay, that depends. Depends on your point of view. The winter time, it's cooler. It's drier, less chance of rain. You get better production because the guys are more comfortable. But the summertime is when the seasonal people are up north, and that's when most of the work is done. The contractors are prepared for rain. They all have radar. They all know when the rain's coming. They'll cover up. But if you live here year round, the wintertime is the best time to do it.
Okay, so the last question, and that fits right into the last question, is this person is a snowbird and the person is concerned about having work done when they're not here. You just said winter's the best time to do it. Well, I assume the snowbirds are here in the winter. So this snowbird, certainly the snowbird could get an estimate now. I think what the person said is it okay to have them do an estimate now and get to work when they're there? Well, certainly, this person can get estimates and try and get it done during the winter time. I guess what they're saying is it very smart to get a roof replaced when you aren't here? And I guess that's up to the person, but what's your thought on that?
Well, for a homeowners association, unless you have somebody that you trust to keep an eye on your home, to check the interior on a regular basis, the contractor has to have access to the interior. Before he starts tearing off the roof, he's going to want to do a walkthrough to see if there's any current leaks, any current damage to the ceilings, walls, etc., because he can't be held responsible for that. If something should happen, and we've seen it not very often, but I've seen somebody step through a rotten piece of plywood and come right through the ceiling. Well, without somebody home, without access to the home, they can't repair it. So somebody in a condominium, it's easy because typically the property has access to all the units.
Mm-hmm.
In an HOA, unless there's someone responsible that can give them access and keep an eye on things, I wouldn't recommend that you have it done while you're gone. Because if you come home and find damage, then you're going to end up fighting with the contractor over whose fault it was.
Thank you. And I want to say one more thing, is Richard is president of his association. So when he talks about HOAs and access and documents and all this, he's not talking as just a roofing expert. He is actually the president of his association. So
900 single family homes. Yeah.
Yes, he's actually been here touring our lakes. So anyway, I want to thank everyone for their time. Once again, the residents were wonderful. They asked terrific questions. I want to thank Richard for his time, Rob, Henry, and of course, Russ and Dee, and Jason for putting this together as well. So thank you very much. It's been a great town hall. It's all recorded if any of your friends and neighbors want to see it. And so with that, good afternoon and have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.